So this time on Corey's Garage again, I'm gonna go through something real quick. I got started on the Blazer. I'm gonna take a little break because this weekend we're going to Fayetteville to do some bike riding and we're gonna take the motorhome. So what I'm gonna do next is I got these new rotors. It's kind of dark in here, I didn't turn the lights on, but I'm gonna put new front brake pads and new front rotors on this motorhome because when I got it, the back brakes didn't work and it's basically relying on the front brakes. So what's happened is the front rotors are warped. So I'm gonna install that new stuff and get it on there. That way it gets the brakes, and I'm just gonna readjust the rears. I've already redone all the wheel cylinders and all the lines and stuff. It's just I wanted to make sure that this thing's gonna be what I want before I go this extra distance. And now after our little trip to New Orleans and everything, shoot, I don't mind taking this anywhere. So we're gonna spend the extra money and make some upgrades and make a good camping rig out of this. So I'm gonna get started, and I already got the wheels unloosened up. Man, this stuff's tight. So God. Dang. That was loose. So I got the wheel off. I knew that this isn't like it's something new. I've already been in here because the year before we were going to take this on a trip down there to New Orleans, and the radiator didn't come in time. It just seemed like everything was working against us. So, and I took my new Jeep that I had and thinking, oh man, this is going to be the way. This is why I bought this vehicle. And it broke down on the way back. A whole nother story, but I don't have that Jeep anymore. So I just strictly try to rely on old stuff to get me around. But yeah, like I said, I've already packed these wheel bearings and all this stuff. But we're gonna take it back apart, put the new rotors on. Now I just gotta get this cotter key. And this really isn't any different than working on anything else. It's just heavier duty stuff, being that this is basically a 1-ton truck. But yeah, that cotter key's kind of stuck. So yeah. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with this thing though. Definitely got to get those RPMs down on the highway. not necessarily trying to go hardly any faster. It's just this motor is cranking some RPMs at highway speeds. And I guess that's fine. In 1979, the speed limit was 55. So it does what it's designed to do, but you could sure waste about 3 extra hours cruising. And it just, I don't know. I don't like hearing that engine cranked up to 3,500 RPMs for hours. It just doesn't, I don't know, stresses me out. So yeah. So yeah, I got the car key out. It got stuck and I had to just kind of manhandle it out of there. But yeah, the lug nuts are 1-inch socket. The nut that holds the bearings in there is 1.25 inches. So we're gonna try to spin that off there. And I'm kind of old school. I like to use, you know, standard tools. I don't mind using an impact if I got lug nuts or, you know, if you're taking something apart. But a lot of times, I just like to use standard hand tools. Because that way, if you feel anything's wrong or some messed up threads, it's nice to know it, you know. Okay, so there's that one. Got that nut out of there. So I got all this squared away. Now we got to pull the caliper off. So there's the first outer wheel bearing. And then the inner's in there when we take it out. But now we got to pull this caliper off. So I get the tools for that. Okay, so I got my stuff together here. This has just got one bolt. To me, this shares some characteristics with a Ford, because you unbolt that, take and drive that out there, and the caliper comes off. For most of your other Chevrolet stuff, bolts on. So it's kind of interesting. I think they all share a few little differences here and there. But man, it's just not that hard to do. It just takes time. Just takes time. Now, what did I do with that? I'll do that on the back side. Got a punch in this. Got the wedge out of there. Now we'll just get this to work our way off. Pretty sure it's gonna be tight. Let me go get a pry bar. And of course it's stuck a little bit. There we go. And see, most people would have done the caliper first, but I kind of got ahead of myself. So I'm new to this video making stuff and I'm still learning. So I kind of went about that backwards a little bit. But that's one thing with this thing too. There's gonna be lots of mistakes. And I'm only a human, so. But yeah, I need to get that out of there. So what I'm gonna do, in a nutshell, that's all you have to do. And what's bad is those pads are really nice. But this stuff's probably been so hot. If it's been hot enough to warp the rotor, it's garbage. So what I'm gonna do, you see how easy that was to take off, but I'm going to go ahead and slide that back on. And I'm going to put this nut back in here. Screw that back on. Because I need to get the seal and the bearing out. And I'm trying to have to match the seal up at the parts store. And it's kind of hard to do sometimes without the old one. And I like to get it out in good shape. So I'm going to run that in there. Get back out of the way. Didn't work. I'm about to put the washer on it. Sometimes on the smaller stuff you can just use the nut, but this is clearly going to need the washer. So I'm gonna put that back on. That dude is pretty heavy, so we'll put this washer in there. Like I said, there's always, it's not gonna work perfect the first time. Sometimes not even the second time. There's a notch on here. Get that washer to go back. There we go. Almost. Should I may be able to pry that out the rest of the way? There we go. So there's the bearing and the seal, so I can go match that up. Be in good business. This old rotor is going to the scrap pile. So yeah, definitely gonna clean this stuff up. I'm not going to get all show car on it. I'm just doing what I need to do to make it work. So, but yeah, definitely get that seal. So I'll get the rest of the stuff and come back. Okay, so I'm getting ready to repack the wheel bearings. You know, a year ago when we were going to drive this thing on the same trip, I had already done all this stuff, washed it, cleaned it, all that good stuff. But I went ahead and did it again, just for the sake of the video, to make sure it's, you know, shows that you're doing it correctly. You know, yeah, if you do got something that you don't know about, it is wise to clean all this stuff up really well. I've already cleaned the inside of the rotor out. That way when we put it together, it'll be good to go. I've checked, I bought my seals. I already made sure they fit that. They fit over the hub inside of here on the spindle, so we're good there. So really, all we gotta do is pack these. I don't have no special tools. I've used them before, but really, I just take and do it the old-fashioned way, man. I put it in there, take the bearing, and I just pack it by hand. I'm not in a real big hurry, so, and I don't know, this is the way I was showed how to do it. This is the way I like to do it. So I'm sure most of you have already done this, already know how to do it, but it's just a good way to do it. And this is the inner wheel bearing. So this one will be going inside the rotor, and the seal will be holding it in. So this is pretty easy to do. Just trying to pack it in there. And if there's a glare, I apologize for that, but this motorhome will not fit in my garage, so I've got to do it outside the old shade tree way. So, but it's not a big deal. So we got that one packed. Just about. It's pushing through to the other side. So I'm still trying to decide what I want to do with this thing. There's so many different options. You know, you could LS swap the whole rig and put an overdrive and double the power of the motorhome and everything, but I've already got one LS swapped car, and I'm possibly going to have another one. So like, one option is, and I've got a couple 4L80s, I could put one of those in with a controller, do all that kind of stuff, but kind of the idea I'm going for here is I want to be able to like use the engine that's in it, because this 400 engine runs great. The transmission works flawlessly, so it keeps leading me more to go towards the gear vendors. And like I said, I've never owned one. It is a little pricey, but when you really add it all up, it's all going to cost about the same in the first place. And really, I don't want to, as you can see, I don't want to do all this stuff outside, and I really just want to make it cruise down the highway easier, just do what I got to do. I want to get out and camping, and I want to use it. You know, I don't want to take all summer of trying to swap another engine in or do this and that or try to, you know, get all these controllers to work right or whatever, you know. So I'm leaving more to do that. And I think it'll drop the RPMs down quite a bit. And if I don't like the motorhome, I can take it off and keep it. It's a good investment. So we got this bearing. It's completely packed, good shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this rotor here. I'm going to go ahead and just put it in there. So we got that in there. Then we'll take and drive the other seal. But since I'm all nasty and dirty, I'm going to go ahead and pack this other bearing too. So I'm just going to get another wad of grease. Get my clean bearing here. And just pack this one as well. Yeah, this is pretty easy to do. It's not that hard. But yeah, I like the idea of keeping it simple. That way when it does break down, I can fix it, you know. And as you can see in the other video, I'd had problems with it. And man, we got it fixed in no time. Even the issue with the parking lights, I might have had a few hours in that, you know, all together, but I could still fix it. If it was a new one, I would be, you know, it'd be very, very hard to fix it on the side of the road, especially the stress you would endure, you know, with your family and all that kind of stuff. And this stuff isn't cheap. It's not cheap to go on vacation. So I always try, even though it's not the nicest and it's not the newest thing out, you know, I like to just do what I can and do it affordably. And it even opened my eyes up when we took it on that trip to Louisiana a couple weeks ago. Man, it really wasn't bad. Like the only problem was, like I said, the excessive RPM trying to go down the highway. But you get into that when you get this old stuff. But it's like cruising an old car, man. Everybody else had new RVs, and I had the only old one in the park. But that was cool, man. People really dug it, so I think it's pretty cool. So yeah, now that one's packed. We're good to go on these things, so put that back in there. Let's clean up. So what I'm going to use here, I just have my seal sitting there. Put the bearing in. Go ahead, and I'm just using a piece of wood. Make sure it's kind of cleaned off. I'm just going to drive that in there, just like so. Nothing to it. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to put this on for good. I always take a little bit of grease and get it all up in there like that. Make sure all that stuff's got something to ride on, you know. Alright, so we're good to go there. Get my old rag here. And this thing weighs like 35, 40 pounds, man. This is a tank. Okay, there it is. So, I'm going to take some grease and put it aside here. Try to pack some up in there for that. And it don't bother me. Sometimes I make a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. I'd rather it have grease than none. So let's get some more up in there. Okay. Now, got our bearing. Just gonna slide that up in there like so. It doesn't hang up. Sometimes they hang a little bit. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna get that washer in. It's got a little space in it. I don't know if you can see it. Like something that lines it up, like a little like a groove or whatever. That's what I'm trying to say. Take that and put it there. And then our nut, which I have not cleaned yet. We're gonna clean it up real fast. got the nut. Go ahead and tighten that down. And there's a hole through the middle of the spindle that will help after you get your preload on your bearings to put a cotter key in, which I'm sure most of you know that. So always give it a good spin. Okay. Put the lid back on this so I don't make too big of a mess. Inch and a quarter at. There it is. Okay, I'm gonna try to find out where that cotter key is. I think it's going on right there actually. So it's in like the 2 o'clock position. So we're gonna use this here. This, just going to tighten it up. Now just pushing it on there. Just a little bit tighter. So about like that. I think that's just fine right there. So now you'll have to line up the key and you're done. So I've already got the cotter key in there, got the preload set. This thing rolls like butter, perfect. So now I'm gonna install the brake pads using a C-clamp to push the piston in. So now I'm sure you can, there's a special tool you can use, but I just use the old brake pad and the C-clamp. I don't know if you can see very well how I'm doing this. I'll try to move it in. Okay. So I got it pushed in where it needs to go, so I'm gonna back this back off. Like I said, look like it had brand new pads on it, but they're squeaking so terribly bad. And these, like I said, these rotors are so warped. So I'm gonna take this bad boy, put it in there like that. And I may have run into my first problem. These are not the brake pads for this truck. So I ran into an issue. I believe they gave me some brake pads for something like this. I looked up C30, 1-ton truck, and these do not fit that caliper. But it's kind of weird because it's kind of like a Ford style caliper. But we'll see. But I'm going to take the old pads and try to go track down the correct brake pads for it. But essentially you just put them in there, put it back on the rotor, tighten it down, go in there and give it a few pumps, and the piston will push back out, and and it's basically you put the wheel back on, you're done. So, and I'm still waiting for my other rotor to show up. It's supposed to be here today. So in a nutshell, this is how you do it. We'll go on to the next thing. So I wish I would have got the right parts, and probably I should have checked before I started, but I was just ready to go, So, but cool. See you next time.